If you're anything like me, you've had quite a week so far. There was a point when I went to make coffee today where I'm not even joking. It was maybe half a second, but for half a second, I thought, well, at least we've gotten through a week of this presidency, and it's only been a couple of days. For some reason, I had thought that the inauguration was last week. But here we are on Thursday, couple days removed. So I want to share a couple of clips from two sane people. It is very important, I think, to connect with people who are following this stuff that are not out of their goddamn minds. So Jon Stewart had on Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to, of course, discuss Trump, but also in the second clip I'll get to later, gives us the mindset that we should have going into this Trump term, and I think in the process gives me a little bit of hope in a time where it is much needed. But here is the first clip. This is an element of Trump that I hadn't really considered, but is so true.
What makes this go around with Trump so much more dangerous than the first time around is exactly what you're saying. It's that he is much more normalized this time around than he was the first time. The first time, people were really on edge, they were on guard, they were very vigilant about any break that he would have with these norms. This time, the norms are becoming him. Like the norms are embracing him. Even these like little things that people may not like everyday working people may not care about, but they are strong cultural signals. Oscar de la Renta, like dressing all of the women, like there's all these cultural symbols, right?
I see, participating now in this when they
Yeah.
wouldn't have participated in the past.
Exactly.
I see what you're
Exactly. So like all of these people that were scared before about like being associated with him from the most common basic level to the most elite level, they're all like they're all in now because this is now a billionaire feeding frenzy. It is a kiss ass race.
Man.
It is how can I show how much fealty I have to Donald Trump in order to get my digs. And I think what's really important for people to understand and like now and every day of this administration is that you're being ripped off. You're being ripped off, dude. Like everyone is being ripped off. And he goes up there and he says what he wants to say, but he's just the quintessential New York con man.
Con man, what are you talking about, AOC? Donald Trump said that he would address the cost of living, and one of his first initiatives is to hand $500 billion to private sector AI. Is this going to lower the cost of eggs? So, this point aside, what she said there is so on point. The normalization of Trump. This is an element that I hadn't really considered pre-election. You know, I discussed often how Trump, because he was already president, he knows how to maneuver the system in a way that he didn't quite know when he first entered politics or first entered the presidency in 2016. I also discussed how he's more aware of who to have around him in terms of people that are just going to kiss his ass. So he's going to ensure that he's not going to have people there that are really going to challenge him. That is all true. But the other side of that I hadn't considered as much is the environment, the cultural acceptance, the social acceptance, the celebrity acceptance of Trump. You have people like Carrie Underwood, at his inauguration, Snoop Dogg performing at his inauguration party, Bezos, Zuckerberg. Those are people that are, clearly not aligned with the vast majority of people, but people see those sorts of faces and think, oh, it's okay. I recognize these guys. They're just businessmen. They're going to keep everything good. No, they're out for their own interests. But it's this cultural acceptance that wasn't there in 2016 that Trump has now, making the runway a lot smoother for him to do whatever the hell he wants. There is less cultural resistance, less social resistance to what he wants to do. And that makes him far more dangerous than he was in his first term. Now, this is all very depressing. So I want to get to very quickly here the next clip. The video of the full podcast isn't up yet, so I had to audio record this from the audio version of the podcast. But this is near the end of the interview, and AOC discusses here the mindset that we should have, and in this moment, gives me a little bit of hope for this coming or ongoing Trump term.
I will always, always, always believe that it was always worth trying. And in
Yes.
fact, it's so important that we don't give up because people do not
can't.
understand. No, even if you don't see a way, because ways emerge, moments emerge. I was not supposed to get elected to Congress by any stretch of the imagination. I was insane. I was a waitress.
No, it's true.
It's not just a cute story. I was wiping down a bar and asking people to vote for me. It wasn't like a summer job I had once. I was not supposed to win. The guy I was running against spent $3 million against me. I was making, I was getting like $2 in my paycheck once a week because I was working off tips and they take it all out, but things happen in America.
Right.
This is still a place of possibility.
But see, the promise of the possible, and that's what gives you that feeling that the fight can pay off. But I think for the most part, that fight is you have no other option. We always talk about that idea, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But what they don't tell you is it doesn't bend by natural forces. Gravity is not what bends that. And there are people who are bending that fucker back the other way.
This, I feel like, is something I had to hear, and something I'm going to have to continue reminding myself of, is that even if you don't see a way, ways emerge, moments emerge. That is very true, and it's true in the example that AOC brought up in terms of her own election. But if you look at any sort of progress across history, it takes time. It takes a lot of time, and along the road, you end up going backwards before you move forwards. Now, I stupidly thought that 2016 and those 4 years was the backwards. Little did I know. We'd all be going back a little further. But we are in a place now where the corruption is going to be so clear. So it already is clear and obvious. But to the average person, so while I discussed earlier, and AOC discussed how the environment, it's more celebrity acceptance, more social acceptance in a cultural way. The other side of that is their corruption is also more out in the open. It's less under the table and more, here is Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, just working with Donald Trump, sitting there at his inauguration. Here he is, putting Elon Musk in his administration, where you have Elon Musk giving, the Nazi salute. Like, there are going to be moments like this that are going to be illuminating for a lot of people who may have been sitting on the sidelines or did not really understand the gravity of the moment. But there's going to be at least 4 years of this, hopefully just 4 years. We'll see how that all plays out. But in this time, this is the time to begin to grow things. I know it's hard for me as an individual to be like, unionize your workplace, because certain things are obvious and I have no impact on that. But that is part of it as well. Social movements, worker movements. These are the sorts of things that have to build over the course of the next 4 years, and not just 4 years, but beyond, continuing to build. Worker power has to build for there to be any sort of real response. Collective action is the only proper response to the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few, especially when you have people who are so brazen with their wealth and their power. I think that makes it easier to organize against. When it's a little more hidden, it involves a little more explanation as to discuss what's going on. When it's out in the open, little explanation is needed. But it's good to hear from two sane people. Feels like there's a lot of insanity right now. So, treat yourself, take breaks as well if you can't take absorbing this every single day. I completely understand. I feel the exact same way. So don't, run yourself into the ground, but be aware if you feel no hope right now, as AOC said, ways emerge, moments emerge.